Now the congressional response says the need for an imminent new Speaker of the House is heightening this morning in the face of war in the Middle East following the stunning ouster of Congressman Kevin McCarthy. In a motion brought by Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, 8 House Republicans sided with all 208 Democrats to force the removal of McCarthy as Speaker. McCarthy says Gaetz has a personal vendetta against him, which Gaetz has denied. I spoke with both men on this program in the last month. Watch.
But it's not something I lay out there that Matt's mad about an ethics complaint. It's an ethics complaint that happened in the last Congress that Matt went to other members saying, I'm going to try to influence Kevin to get involved in an ethics complaint. I can't do it. Yeah. It's illegal.
My vendetta is against a Washington system that allows corruption to put the interests of lobbyists and PACs above the interests of the American people. Kevin McCarthy facilitates that system, and I do deeply resent that.
House Republicans will meet this Tuesday on a candidate forum. A secret ballot is being held on Wednesday. The nominee will need 218 votes to succeed. A full House vote is expected later that day on Wednesday. So far, Congressman Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise have announced their candidacy. Joining me right now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, who President Trump has endorsed for the Speaker's role. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Good to be with you, Maria.
I want to first get your take on the war in the Middle East, the war on Israel, and whether or not this is created a heightened need for an expedited process to get a speaker in place.
Well, we need to get a speaker in place as soon as possible, someone we can unite around. But you're exactly right. I thought Senator Cotton said it best. We need to give Israel the time, the space, the resources so that they can win and win decisively and send a message to these evil people who did this to our great friend and great ally, the state of Israel. And understand that I think every American is praying for the folks in Israel as we speak right now. But I had the opportunity yesterday to talk to former Ambassador Friedman. I talked to Chairman McCall. We do need to get together and get the resources there and the support there so Israel can win. There is a special bond between the state of Israel and the American people. I've been to Israel 5 times. The way we can work together and help them it's been a long history of that. We need to make sure we continue that and help them win this as quickly as possible.
Do you support additional funding to Israel? What do you want to see in terms of that support? What does that look like?
I want to give them what they need to win. And we've been doing that with David Sling and Iron Dome, these weapon systems, that we've worked together with Israel to make sure that they can defend themselves and stave off all these evil terrorists who want to come and attack the Israeli people. So I want to do what it takes to win this. But I think Senator Cotton was right. Typically how these things shake out is after a while, there's this push to have Israel restrain themselves. No, not like this. This happened on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. It happened on Shabbat. This was intentional evil actions by these terrorists, and we need to make sure that they have what they need to win and send a message to stop this kind of ridiculous stuff and take action against these people who are doing these terrible things.
Let me turn to the speaker's race and this candidate forum on Tuesday and then the vote on Wednesday. Can you walk us through how this plays out?
Well, I'm running because, look, I think I'm the one candidate who can unite our conference and then go tell the American people what we're doing and why it matters to them, why it's important to their family, to their community, to their small business, why it's important what we're doing for our country. The American people right now, Maria, I think they are so thirsty for leadership. And I don't think they're seeing it from the White House. I don't think they're getting it from the Senate. House Republicans need to unite and show the country that we're fighting for them. Think about what they see every day. Crime in the streets, 10,000 illegals coming across the border every single day. The price of food, what it costs to put gas in their car. I mean, they are hungry for leadership. We need to come together and show the American people we're fighting for the things they care about that will make a difference for our great country.
As Speaker of the House, what would be your direction in the face of war in the Middle East right now? We are looking at a candidate, yourself and Steve Scalise, vying for the job. You know, President Trump has endorsed you. He wrote on Truth Social over the weekend that he would like to see you as Speaker of the House. But tell me what your first directive would be as Speaker.
To help the state of Israel. There will be some resolution on the floor to support the state of Israel. We will consult with Chairman McCall. We will consult with the Senate. We'll work with the State Department and the White House. But that is something that I think gets bipartisan, bicameral, full support from the United States government, because again, this is our great friend and great ally, the state of Israel. So I think that's front and center. And then, frankly, the next order of business is to deal with what's coming on November 17th. And I will outline a plan that I think we have to have. When we walk out of that room next week, we got to have 218 votes for a Republican speaker, and we got to have 218 votes for how we deal with November 17th when the funding bill for the government comes due. We need to have a plan for how we're going to deal with that. And I will outline that in front of my colleagues on Tuesday when we get together.
You have been talking with many of your colleagues over the weekend. Steve Scalise is also asking colleagues for their support. Can you give us a sense of whether or not you feel you have those votes?
We've got amazing feedback and incredible feedback from our colleagues across the country, across the spectrum in the Republican conference. I mean, we got conservatives to what's termed more moderate members. We got 3 committee chairmen for me. I feel very good about that support. And again, I think it boils down to those fundamental questions. Who can unite our conference? Who can bring us together so that we can lead for the American people? And then who can go tell the country what we're doing here, what the things we're working on, the things that matter to them and how it matters to them, how it impacts them and their family. Yeah. That's what we're supposed to do in politics. We're supposed to do what we told the people we were going to do. We're supposed to focus on them and help them, their families, their communities. That's our job. That's what we need to focus on.
Congressman, beyond Israel, beyond the spending fight, many people are looking at President Biden's foreign policy as well as the corruption that we have seen in plain sight. You have been leading this investigation into the weaponization of our federal agencies. Yeah. What can you tell us about those investigations now that there is no speaker in place? You may very well be leaving to become the speaker and leaving the Judiciary Chairman job. Will those investigations be ongoing?
They sure will. We already, as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, we already work closely with Speaker McCarthy's office. That communication, that collaboration is there. I mean, just on basic things, to get subpoenas issued, you have to consult with the Speaker's Council, the House Council. There's already that working together amongst the 3 key committees, the Ways and Means Committees, the Oversight Committee, and Judiciary Committee, and of course the Speaker and the Speaker's staff and the House Council. So that will continue. That's part of our constitutional duty, Maria. We're supposed to provide oversight of the federal agencies, and we've been doing that. We've been doing it aggressively. We've been doing it in a way that's consistent with the Constitution, and we've been making a difference. There have been changes in these agencies because of the work we're doing. Yes. That I think protects Americans' liberties and freedoms. So that work will have to continue.
Are you expecting to subpoena Hunter Biden?
That will be a call for the committee chairman. Right now, Chairman Comer has subpoenaed Hunter Biden's business records. He wants to get that information and then make a decision on that subpoena. But those come from Speaker of the House doesn't issue subpoenas. The chairman of the respective committees issue those. And I'll be fully supportive if Chairman Comer wants to go that direction.
Congressman, thank you. We'll be watching important upcoming days. Congressman Jim Jordan, thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.